y'all, it's Katie. Hope everyone's doing well. Today we are talking about Scythe by Neal Shusterman. Anyone who knows anything about my reading habits knows that I love Neal Shusterman. He's the author of the Unwind Dystology, the Skinjacker Trilogy, Challenger Deep, and a bunch of other standalones. Definitely one of my favorite authors of all time. It took me forever to get around to actually reading this book, which is so ridiculous because I do love him so much. Scythe is set in a futuristic society wherein humanity has conquered every ailment, everything that could possibly kill you, everything is under control. So people don't die natural deaths. There's nothing. And without scythes, people don't die. If you do die, they have ways to revive you. So there's no way to control the population without scythes. Scythes are basically the Grim Reapers of society. They're assigned a certain region, and within that region they have a quota of people that they have to glean, which basically means kill, but in a nicer way. After two very different encounters with a certain scythe, Rowan and Citra are both chosen to be his apprentices. Of course, they are both very hesitant to the idea of being professional Grim Reapers. And there are definitely a lot of downfalls that come with being a scythe, including inability to marry and have a family, as well as, the fact that you have to kill people for a living. However, being a scythe does guarantee your entire family immunity from being gleaned for as long as you are a scythe, in addition to the fact that everybody basically bows down to you because they're so worried that you're going to glean them. I think I ended up giving this book an 8.4 out of 10. I definitely think with Neal Shusterman, the first book does tend to be the hardest to get through because there's just so much that he's trying to set up. His worlds are so intricate that it just takes a while for the plot to really get going. The story ended really dramatically, and I'm really excited with the way that it's setting up for the second book. I think we have a lot to look forward to. Obviously, this book is very different from any of his other works, but something about Neal Shusterman's writing and the worlds that he sets up just gives me such a similar feeling. Like, I read this book, and even though it's totally different than Unwind, I felt like I was reading Unwind again because of the way it made me feel. That is just about everything I can say without spoiling you, so if you have not read this book, now is your time to go. I definitely would recommend this book. It definitely has a more middle grade feel to it, but I definitely think that Neal Shusterman has a great writing style, and all of his stories definitely have real world meanings even though they're set in completely different situations. Into the spoilers. So we start off with Citra meeting Scythe Faraday because he's gonna kill her neighbor. And her family is so worried because she keeps just being honest and calling him out on it and saying things like it is, and her family is astonished and they're so worried that she's gonna get herself gleaned. But Scythe Faraday respects it. He's like, yeah, I like that you're blunt. And then we have Rowan, who holds the hand of a boy who's never acknowledged him a day of his life as he's being gleaned because he doesn't want him to have to go through it alone. And Scythe Faraday says, wow, like that was really compassionate of you and no one else is going to care. Your life's about to get miserable. From after these encounters until probably just after the first conclave, I had a really hard time getting through this book. It was just kind of sluggish. I had to keep putting it down, reading another book, and then getting back into it because I just couldn't, there was just not enough there that was drawing me in. I cared about the storyline and I wanted to know what happened, but it was just nothing was happening at the moment and I needed something more action-packed. Citra and Rowan are kind of unsure of whether or not they should accept the apprentice positions. Their families kind of encourage them to do so, even though they're very hesitant. We start living with Scythe Faraday and we expect this evil, rich person, but it turns out that he's actually very humble. He believes in living off of little means and that he's really doing the work of society and it's for the people. And in between, we're getting these little snippets of these, evil scythes who, go around committing mass murder and they, get their kicks out of it. It's not, oh, I'm just doing my job for the good of society. It's, yes, I hope we can glean as many as possible today. And then when we get to the first conclave, when Rowan purposely sabotages himself because Citra failed her question and he doesn't want her to look bad, the conclave of scythes decides that to make sure they're both putting their all in, only one of them will get to survive the apprenticeship. And at the end, whoever is chosen as the better scythe will have to glean the other as their first act. This is when everything really kicks up a notch. Rowan and Citra have had this kind of friendship that's building where they both kind of have feelings for each other, but they worry that the other won't return it, and it's kind of impossible anyway because they can never really have any kind of relationship. But at this point, there's nothing. They can have nothing with each other, so they kind of start to avoid each other because it hurts to think about getting even closer and then having to kill one or the other. And they're both kind of at the point where they're like, there's no way that I could kill that person. It's then revealed that Scythe Faraday has gleaned himself. We have these, 10 Scythe commandments that all scythes must follow, and one of them is that only a scythe can end his own life. Citra and Rowan, of course, are so confused because Scythe Faraday loved life. He believed in his purpose and he thought it was so important, and he loved humanity and believed in his ability to help humanity. Until it's revealed that whenever a scythe does glean themselves, all of their apprentices are let go to live out the rest of a normal life. At which point it's revealed that Scythe Faraday's sacrifice is irrelevant because the evil Scythe Goddard, the mastermind of all of the mass gleanings, has stepped forward and said that he will take on the apprenticeship of both of them, which null and voids the idea that they would get to go free, and now whatever happens they will still have to glean one of each other. We have the Honorable Scythe Curie, who is like the Grand Dame of Death, and despite disliking Citra, she takes her on as her apprentice because she believes that Goddard would pit them against each other constantly in the last year of one of their lives, and she doesn't want that for them. And we later find out that her and Scythe Faraday were like together because she was his apprentice. We're kind of presented with the idea that she might have taken Citra under her wing for more than just that purpose. She might have done it for Scythe Faraday. I think the concept of them all having like historic figures as their names is really interesting. I'm wondering if the significance will ever be brought more into the light in the further books in the series, or if it's kind of just that idea of looking back into the past, acknowledging what's come before, even though we're not really utilizing any of it. We have a crazy ton of drama in like the last 100 pages of the book, wherein Citra has been looking into Scythe Faraday's gleaning because he doesn't think that he was the one who gleaned himself. He thinks it was a murder by Goddard or someone else. As she is looking into this murder, Goddard somehow finds out. Goddard then has something presented to accuse her of being the one who actually orchestrated Scythe Faraday's gleaning and portrayed it as his own, so then she is somehow imprisoned. We have this whole series of events wherein she's like broken out of prison, and Scythe Curie like helps her escape, and she goes to find this person who she was told would hold all of the answers. When she gets there to find the person, she finds out that it's Scythe Faraday. He's not really dead. Along the way, Rowan has been trained by Scythe Goddard and his minions, who are kind of contorting his own morals and making him not know how to feel because they're making him think that he enjoys gleaning, and he knows that he shouldn't and he doesn't ever want to, but that kind of is just emerging within him. And then we get to the last conclave, when one of them is supposed to glean the other, and like there's this whole mess. Citra's been found innocent, and she's also had this conversation with the Thunderhead, who is apparently somehow sentient, and every time she's dead, they'll be able to chat. So he's like, yeah, like if you ever want to chat again, just like arrange something. And so now that she's been pardoned, they have their like final test or whatever, which is to kill someone who means the most to them in the whole world. The person will of course be revived as soon as each of the Scythes has gleaned them, but the fact of the matter is Citra walks in and has to kill her brother. So whenever they're presented with who's going to become a Scythe and who's not, the other two have failed the exam and only her and Rowan have passed, but only one of them can live. And so Citra is presented with her ring and asked to choose her name because she is now the one who has been chosen to be a Scythe. And so she chooses the name Anastasia, and everybody flips out because they're like, no, that's not done, you can't do that. And she's like, yes I can. We choose historical names because they're significant and important. And Anastasia, like me, had her future ripped away from what it could have been, and like goes off on them. So now she's declared Scythe Anastasia, and she has to kill Rowan. And so the first thing she does when she walks over to him is punches him straight in the face. He like falls over, and everyone's like, whoa, what's going on? And so then she's like, okay, now I'll glean him or whatever, it's fine. And Rowan's just like, you know, like I knew she would do this. And just as she goes to like stab him, everybody's rings light up, because when she punched him in the face, she gave him immunity because she punched him in the mouth, and her ring, like, it's like he kissed her ring. Citra, you beautiful genius! I was so worried. I was like, there has to be a way out of this. They're gonna figure something out, because otherwise they won't be able to be like on the run for the next book or 3 books or whatever it is. So something has to go down, but I couldn't figure out what it was, and we're literally like about to stab him. Whew! So they're like, okay, well, we'll just imprison Rowan for the next year, and then whenever the immunity wears off, you can do it again. She's like, okay, sure. And then she like whispers to Rowan like, hey, there's a car out front, hurry up. He like sprints, gets through all the Scythes or whatever, breaks his way out, jumps into the car or whatever, and it's Scythe Faraday. He's like, oh, hey, how's it going? Citra had never told Rowan like, oh, BT dubs, he's not dead. So then they're gonna be on the run together. We're left with an entry from Scythe Anastasia, or Citra's journal, wherein she's discussing her new life as a Scythe. As had happened to Scythe Goddard and all of his minions, as they had been set on fire, the building they were in had been set on fire, and their corpses had been destroyed before anyone could come in and try to stop the fire and save them, and fire is the one thing that you cannot be revived from. As had happened to them, so was happening to all of these other corrupt Scythes. There's someone being called Scythe Lucifer who's going around and, like, burning and destroying all of the evil Scythes and kind of trying to, like, clean the system and fix everything. We leave the story. We've got Citra working from the inside. We've got Rowan on the outside. They better get together. It was just so intricate. There were so many little things that went into it. I love the way that it happened. I love Neal Shusterman's writing. Most things end up working themselves out in his books, but you never know that they will because there's just anything could happen. You do not know who will survive, who will not, what's going to happen to them along the way. I'm so excited for the rest of this series now. I thought this was so well done. We have all of these characters with all these different facets, and this ending, just this premise of going into the second book and having Rowan be this illegal Scythe Lucifer, like, oh my god. Robin Hood setting things on fire. I hope we do get to see them interact in the next book. I have a feeling that we might not. It'll be kind of like Unsouled, where we saw a lot of Connor and Risa, but it was them each doing their own thing, and then it all came together at the end. So I think that that might be what we end up getting. I love it either way, but, like, I'd really like to see them interact more, especially now that they don't have this pressure to kill each other over their heads. Of course, it's still illegal for any Scythe to get, like, married or anything, so I don't know what we're going to do about that. We're going to have to fix that somewhere. I'm wondering if this is something where we're going to have to abolish the Scythedom, but can we really do that? Because then there will be no population control. Like, I just really don't know what's going to go down. Definitely, I do think that this book was one of the harder ones to get through by Neal Shusterman, but the ending was so promising and so well written that I'm really excited to see what he does with it now that all of kind of the setup from the kind of more sluggish parts of this book is done. I'm really excited to see how all of that is now going to play into it, how well that established this foundation, and what we're going to do with it in the next book. So that is all that I have to say for Scythe. If you've also read this, let me know, because I'm wondering what other people have thought about this. I haven't seen anything from anyone else. So definitely let me know. Have a good one, y'all.